Hey everybody, how you doing today? Terribly sorry that we can't be there in person to present a little bit about the fire and building code impacts on our services. If we could be there personally, we would. My name is David Petka. I'm the Director of Operations and certainly representing Robert Vanderspeck as well as the Director of Facilities as we try and inform everyone out there a little bit about some of these changes. So the purpose of what I wanted to share with you over the next few minutes is really give you a quick overview of the major points of the code changes, and by that I mean the fire and the building code, and how that's changed over the last number of months. Tell you a little bit about properties and providing service, and tell you a little bit about the impact that this has on your role and some of the things that you're going to see as a part of that. Tell you a little bit about an example that we have of how the code is being applied to our current homes and what that is causing us to do and how we need to do it, and to talk a little bit about some of the actions being taken and the advocacy that's happened around some of these issues. And of course, we've got a bit of a list of resources that's available to you to help understand some of these things a little bit better. Some of the major points that we want to let you know about as this new code came into effect on January of this year was that it clearly outlines that compliance to the code is the responsibility of the owner operator. And for us, that's Christian Horizons. That's the managers of Christian Horizons, the people that are responsible. Contrary to popular belief, sometimes it is not the responsibility of that fire inspector that comes in, and if he doesn't notice something, it must be okay. No, the responsibility is actually ours to be compliant with the code. One of the other changes that's happened is the definition of care occupancy has become much more restrictive, and that, of course, defines what we can do in the locations that we have. The building and the fire code are two separate codes, but in January of this year, as they rolled out new, they've become a little bit more aligned. So they use some of the same language and they reference each other a little bit, and that's a good thing. There's certainly an increase on focus on ability for self-preservation. So sometimes we talk about someone's ability to evacuate. Well, this is kind of what that is all about. It's someone's ability to take care of their own safety when there's danger. So can somebody be responsible for their own life preservation should a fire occur? So sometimes that's can people get out of the house without any assistance from anybody else? That's a key factor for the code and for how the code is being applied to what we do. And I put a blue star beside that and a few other points because they're particular points that affect your role as you provide services to people. The next one is that there's mandatory training that's implied in the code, and there's owner operator training, there's fire officials training, as well as there's training that's required for the direct support professional. And that training for you is really about the fire safety plans. The drills, we do great with having a great policy around drills. The new code rolled out and says that now there's an expectation that we inform fire departments about one drill a year that's going to be about an approved scenario. And that scenario has to be the highest amount of support required with the least amount of staff. So you generally, I think we're pretty agreed that that's going to be our night support. So we have to do a drill that replicates night supports in reality, and we have to tell the fire department when we're going to do it and give them enough time so they can choose to observe it or not. And of course, that's going to be pretty crucial in the process going forward. Fire safety plans, of course, they are currently expected and they continue to be expected and continue to be approved by the local fire department. And of course, one of the other big changes is that depending on how many people are asleep at a particular location will determine whether a sprinkler is required. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in another slide. And the code also requires, in certain situations, monitoring of either fire alarms or sprinklers at locations, and that's going to be another thing that we're going to have to be a little bit mindful of. This slide tells us just a little bit about the property profile of Christian Horizons, and I think it's pretty telling that we have 276 properties across the province that we use in services in one way or another. And I put a blue star there beside the 180 because that is homes and townhome locations where the code is particularly centered on. And then, of course, the apartments and day and commercial locations that we have as well. And of course, of that 180 programs, there are 32 of them that are properties that we don't own, and we lease or we rent from a landlord or from a company. And of course, we need to be thinking about those as we invest into the fire safety or the life safety features of those locations. Here's a few things about those 180 homes. We know that about 73% of them are going to be required to change from a residential occupancy to a care occupancy, and that's going to possibly require a change of use. It's possibly going to require life safety features or design features in the house to be changed, so maybe exits or fire ratings of walls or doors, things like that. And of course, we want to engage in a professional assessment to determine what exactly is needed at those locations, so we're not just doing some guesswork on it. Another impact that we know on our locations is we have about 96 locations that are going to need some form of fire department monitoring. And that's, again, either monitoring smoke alarms or sprinklers. And based on the number of people sleeping in a location, we feel that there's 46 locations out there that will need a sprinkler system installed by the deadline that the code gives us till January 2019. And of course, that could get bumped up a little bit depending on if renovations are going to happen before then those renovations could trigger that sprinkler system may need to be installed sooner. And I'll tell you a little bit about that as we talk about an example soon. And of course, the fire safety plans and evacuation. And this is a really important part. Regardless of life safety features of a home, so regardless of what's in place and what it looks like and how it's designed, if the time needed to evacuate exceeds the time available, mitigating actions must be taken. And those actions could be changing the life safety features of a property, like the designs, installing sprinklers, creating new exits, those kind of things, or possibly looking at the staffing of that particular location as well. Here's a little bit of a real-time example. At the time that I'm recording this, this is going on right now, and we still don't have it completely resolved, but we have a bungalow in one of our communities, beautiful home you can see here in the picture, main level entrance. There's a walkout from the basement on the back side of the home. There's one entrance on the main floor, as you can see in the picture, and one exit from the basement or the walkout. And of course, 5 people live here. 2 of them need assistance to evacuate. There's restricted exits because this particular location has a few mag locks in place, and there's already a sprinkler actually installed in this location. Well, we went for a building permit to do some renovations in the basement to align some living space and a bathroom that's related to the services to the individuals in that particular home, and that triggered a complete review of the property from the building department, and they said, thank you very much, this is great, but really you need to up this to a care occupancy, which is a B3 occupancy. Some of us have heard that term, and here's a number of things that you need to do to make that happen. So we need to take a look at the exits from that house, and of course that was a pretty significant thing. Here's an example of one of the ideas that was going to be proposed. As you can see, there's a living room, and one of the needs was to create an exit out the back of the house. So one idea was to actually shave off part of the living room here and create an exit to a deck that didn't exist. So that has to be built. This isn't the final design that was agreed upon with the city, but this is the kind of stuff that needed to be considered. So you can see how it has huge impacts for the particular homes that are involved. Some of the action items that are happening, of course, we need to seriously think about our housing and how we support people, and think really big and think about the future in how those services are provided. We certainly need to do some code assessments of our properties and to find out from professional architects and engineers what are the differences between our homes and the code, and where do we need to invest our energies to bring those things up to meet this code. Certainly, there's lots of advocacy with the government that needs to happen because they do provide the funding for these services. So we need to let them know very clearly what the impact is. And of course, all of this has an impact on vacancy management and the new services that we provide or new services that we may think about. So when a vacancy comes open in a home for whatever reason, we will really need to think about that next person in service and their ability to manage their own safety when it comes to a fire emergency, or their ability to evacuate that will become a part of that discussion in serving them. We have some resources that we're developing that we want to make sure that we share with you. One of them is a code map, and that's really for our planners and our managers, and it's just a kind of a decision-making tree, if you would, that's going to help people just to walk through some decisions to say, if we're thinking about doing this, what's that mean for us? And I'll show you that on the next slide, actually. We have a facilities attribute survey where we keep information about our locations, and we certainly want people to keep that up to date so that we know what the features of our homes are, and the abilities for people to evacuate is kept in that information. We've done a code review with a consultant, and we have a report from them, which is a big broad overview of the code and our services, and that's been a real helpful thing. So wrapping up here, I just wanted to show you an example. This is kind of a zoomed in version of the code map, and you can see that it asks a question. Is any one of these people needing supports to identify danger and evacuate a location independently in case of a fire or emergency? Well, if the answer to that question is yes, they need supports, then you go down this path and continue on asking some questions. And if it's no, well, no, this does not need to be a care occupancy, and some other questions that'll get asked. So it's a document that's got lots of stuff in it. It's probably best viewed on a computer and zoomed in on, but it's really designed, again, to help our planners to think about some of the impacts of these things. So that's kind of it in a bit of a nutshell. I just want to say thank you for your time today, and certainly the facilities department and myself in the operations department are more than willing to answer any questions that you have. Again, wish I could be there in person to take any questions from you, but do give me a contact through email, or find me on the directory and my phone number, and I'd be happy to answer any of those questions. So have a fantastic rest of your day as you cover, I'm sure, a ton of other topics, and enjoy. Okay, thank you very much.